Hello, welcome to Mike's Mets Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pashota, and happy Wednesday to you. So, it's time to raise the alarm, blow the horn, put it at DEFCON 1. We are in serious trouble. The New York Mets lost to the Tampa Bay Rays in pretty decisive fashion last night. This was really not close, despite the final score being somewhat close because the Mets would come back in that game. But this was really just a complete beatdown by one of the best teams in baseball. So the Rays beat the Mets 8-5. This was largely the fault of Justin Verlander, who, after a excellent start, his last performance on the mound, comes back, faces the Rays, and they pretty much just bitch slap him across Citi Field. It was pretty ugly. Through the first couple of innings, it looked okay. And then Verlander gets into trouble in a major way. He gives up a 3-run home run in the third inning. And then from that point on, he gets ripped for another RBI single the following inning. And then by the fifth inning, they would put the capper on it with a 2-run home run, making it 6-0, meaning Verlander had given up 6 runs in just 5 innings. It was a pretty ugly performance. Verlander is certainly a better pitcher than this. We don't really know what exactly is going on with him, but he was completely all over the place. And though he didn't walk too many batters, he just was not effective at all on the mound. And the Mets had to go to the bullpen pretty early. The amazing thing is that despite having to go to the bullpen early, the bullpen did not really do that much damage after that point. They would allow 2 more earned runs over the course of the next 4 innings, but considering that they were left in that kind of position against a Rays team that had just beat down a $86 million pitcher for the first 5 innings of the game, they actually held their own for that amount of time. And the Mets would make something of a little comeback, which was, I guess, something to hang your hat on, but was otherwise pretty ugly game. The Mets would make some good moments, I suppose, in this game. Brett Baty homering. That was his, I believe, 3rd home run of the season thus far. Alonso and Eduardo Escobar would also hit home runs. Escobar's 2-run home run coming in garbage time in the bottom of the 9th, so it just made the final box score a little bit respectable, but this was just a complete blowout. You really cannot look at it in any other way other than the Mets were kind of shown their limitations. They are numerous and vast. That's probably the best way to put it right now. They have no real business trying to contend at this point. They are a complete mess. Not in terms of the offense so much, although the offense could certainly use a little bit of a pick-me-up at this point. And we got some news this morning, which will be encouraging to Met fans, but it is mostly the pitching staff, which is the most god-awful pitching staff I've ever seen on a Mets team in some time. I mean, there've been some bad Mets pitching staffs. Sorry, I can't speak. This is just unconscionably bad. They are 14th in the NL in ERA this year, 4.77 collective ERA. The starting pitching rotation is so abysmal at this point. I don't even know what to say. They are a complete train wreck, and you have to look at them and say, we actually thought this was going to be a good group. And honestly, there are things to like. The main unforgivable sin that they've thus far committed by the staff is the fact that they cannot keep any semblance of control on the mound. That starting pitching staff is a complete dumpster fire in terms of allowing walks. They are a mess. It is so bad. They cannot keep batters from reaching base. They are leaving people on. They're giving up base hits. The at-bats are some of the ugliest things I've ever had to watch, where they just cannot throw consecutive strikes. It's really rare. It's honestly one of the most ugly things I've ever seen. And uh, you look at this staff and you're like, they invested how much money in this? Like they have how much money between Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, and both guys have an ERA, collective ERA of, I'm going to say, 4.8, 4.82. I think this would be the collective ERA at this point between the two of them. They're making like in this year they're making a combined $86 million, I believe it is, and it's not good. It's pretty bad. Kodai Senga, I think, no, even Kodai Senga no longer has the lowest ERA. That belongs to Tyler McGill. Tyler McGill at a sparkling 4.02. Great job, Tyler McGill. The lone bright spot, I guess you could say, about it has been some of the relievers have been excellent. I'll say that David Robertson has been fantastic, stepping into a role that he was not expecting to be in. When they acquired him, he was expected to be the setup man leading into Edwin Diaz. Diaz gets hurt, they had to plop in Robertson. Robertson's been fantastic. I mean, really stepped in and has a .53 ERA, 24 strikeouts and 17 innings allowed. He's walked 7 batters. That's honestly pretty low for him. He's not really that great in terms of control. Adam Ottavino, after a rough start, has kind of recovered. Drew Smith has had a really good start to this season. He started off good last year also, so we'll see how long that this pick up. Jeff Brigham, Brooks Raley, they've all looked pretty solid. It's just been the other group that's been pretty bad. So they've had to lean a lot on Tommy Hunter, a lot on Steven Nagosic, Brooks Raley, Dominic Leone. These are all just guys that are just, they're not really, with the exception of Raley, supposed to be involved in terms of the middle relief. They shouldn't be involved in the games as much as they are, but they have to keep putting them in because the starting pitching staff is in such a train wreck early this year that they have no choice but to consistently go back to them and say, you need to pitch like 3 innings in this game, even though you pitched like 3 innings the game 2 games ago, but you got to do it again. Sorry. It's not good. They are in a really dire strait right now. I can't really even conceptualize a situation where they can kind of recover right now, because everything they do just seems to kind of throw fuel on the fire. Every game that they have a good pitching performance is not let up with another good pitching performance. They can't keep it consecutively going. There's no sort of consistency or continuity in anything that they do. So what we're left with is this completely uncoordinated, like one-armed sort of beast that can't seem to keep anything going. I've said this before. We have this group that, if one group is doing well, the other 2 groups can't keep it up. They can't hold up their own. Offense is able to muster up 5 runs in this game. Bullpen's able to keep it under control. The starting pitching staff completely bombs. And it might be something different tomorrow. It might be something different the next day after that. There's really no way to tell. Everything's so inconsistent right now. I can't tell who's going to have a good pitching performance one day, and the next start they might be completely different. It's completely out of whack right now, and unfortunately, this means that someone's going to have to kind of step up and bear the brunt of the blame here. Some of it should go to Billy Epler. I don't think that's really any kind of shock. That I think that Epler is the one that really should be paying for a lot of this. Some of it, unfortunately, is also going to have to go to Jeremy Hefner, the Mets pitching coach, who has presided over the staff that is completely underperformed, and someone's got to look at it and say, what exactly happened here? This is supposed to be one of the team's strengths this year, and you completely botched it. I don't think it's really Hefner's fault. I think the pitchers themselves have looked completely uncoordinated, also like unprepared. It's difficult to put into words, and I was having this discussion with my brother last night where we were just talking about what's wrong with them and how it's like we can't watch them anymore. And one of the biggest issues is that I said they seem unprepared. Like, it seems like they don't really know how to pitch in 2023. Like, they are still pitching like it's 2022 in 2023. And it's a feeling. I don't really know if they came into it correctly in spring training. I don't know if the World Baseball Classic threw that off also in terms of preparation and people being involved there. But honestly, there wasn't like there weren't like any kind of like Met presence in terms of the Mets pitching staff. They should have been prepared for this sort of changeover, and instead everybody just looks really off. I think certainly things with Scherzer, Verlander, pitchers of their age, it's really hard for them to sort of coordinate and adapt to a much more high-paced pitching environment. But and then Kodai Senga is coming from a completely different environment. But then you also have like Tyler McGill, who's been sort of middling, and David Peterson. There is there is no real excuse for what David Peterson is doing. David Peterson, as I predicted in my last episode, completely shit the bed. It was a ugly performance that basically just like proves that like he cannot be pitching right now. He is so bad that if they put him in, they're going to lose that game, and not even close. It's like he was completely bombed by the Washington Nationals, a team that shouldn't be bombing anybody, and it was a really ugly game. And then leading into the series, which again I said that was an important game for them to win because they had to have some kind of momentum going into this series against the Rays, and very quickly the Rays took over, and we knew it was going to happen because the Rays are a much better team right now. They are completely set in terms of what they have. They look really prepared in terms of how to approach the game right now. The Mets have no sense of preparation right now. Incredibly, according to Baseball Reference, the Mets still have a 39% chance to make the postseason. I don't really know that's possible. I guess it's because we're not that far into the season right now. The Mets are 20-23, and another thing that me and my brother were talking about was the fact that the 2008 Mets, which not a great standard of looking in terms of reference, but the 2008 Mets, a team that ultimately won, I believe 89 games that year, had started off the year under 500 and rallied back afterwards. However, that did mean that they needed to change managers. Willie Randolph got the axe of that year, and it was sort of a culture shift that they needed to make. It's starting to become clear that the Mets are going to have to make some kind of culture change. Part of that, their goal in terms of doing that will be helped by the fact that they are bringing up the guy who has been raking in AAA, Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos was up last year. He didn't really look incredibly impressive. There were some moments where I was like, okay, that guy looks good. He's been tearing it up in AAA, and this is really no surprise because everybody in Mets AAA team is tearing it up. Alvarez, Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio. Everybody is like treating it like it's like rookie ball, and they're playing in AAA. So everyone's stats are really inflated. I don't think Mark Vientos can hit 333 in the show, but there's really no reason to keep him in AAA right now, particularly when the Mets offense kind of needs a little bit of a kick. As I said before, the offense is not the issue right now, although certainly they could be better, but they need a little bit of a push here. And in terms of the culture, they really need to put aside some of the veterans on this team. And some of the guys who have not been performing, Escobar, although he hit the 2-run home run last year, has not been playing very well this year. Same goes for Tommy Pham. Same goes for Mark Canha. Same goes for Starling Marte. The Marte thing is even more complicated because they're tied in with Marte for another couple of years, and they have no way to disengage themselves from this contract. Marte is a really good player, but he has looked really lost at the plate this year. He got off to a slow start last year. I'm hoping that's what it is. I hope he kind of comes around as the year progresses, but it is pretty rough to watch right there, and he is not helping the team at all in terms of really any kind of sense. So keeping him in the lineup would seem to be difficult. Daniel Vogelbach has been, fine. I don't really know if fine is really the thing that you want from your DH. He's just not really doing anything for me right now. He's got 2 home runs, 13 RBIs, a 745 OPS, which puts him remarkably high in terms of the Mets totem pole in terms of team leaders in OPS. He's actually third in the team, which is really pathetic. But they need some kind of boost right now because Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor are slumping right now. Francisco Alvarez has been inconsistent early on. Brett Beatty's been, fine. I'm glad he's, hitting home runs. It looks like he can be certainly a productive player in this team. Brandon Nimmo's been one of the high moments for the Mets this year. They've actually looked at his player performance, and he's come out really good. He's still batting over 300 for the year. Not really hitting much in terms of power, which is a little concerning. Only 3 home runs early on this year and 9 doubles. So they'd like to see a little bit more hitting from him, but he's walking, and that's great. I'm glad for Brandon Nimmo. He seems to be off to a good start. And then Pete Alonso, and it's weird to dig Alonso because Alonso still has 14 home runs. He hit another home run last night. 14 home runs puts him in the league lead still. He's batting .233. However, he's really seen his average dip after a real hot start early in the year, and he needs to be better than what he's been doing. And again, it's not his fault. The offense around him has largely been ineffective, except for some bright moments along the way. But they need to really start putting in together in terms of consistent at bats, and part of it is putting players aside who don't need to be there right now. And that is certainly a guy like Tommy Pham, who, after a good start, has plateaued pretty quickly. We didn't really expect much from Tommy Pham. But they really need to kind of figure out a mix right now. And Mark Vientos, throw some new blood in there. I fully support the idea that Vientos can be put in there at the DH spot. That's really the only place he can really play. He's not a good defensive player in any kind of position that you're going to put him in. Even trying to teach him maybe play left field is sort of a tricky moment. You really don't want that outfield defense to erode any more than it is right now. So it's tricky. I don't really know what they're going to do with Vientos, how they're going to slot him in, if he's platooning with Vogelback at the DH slot, or if they're going to try him at a position. But as of right now, it's just nice to see somebody with who could potentially kind of jumpstart this offense. Now, not to put a lot of pressure on Vientos, but he's got to deliver early and pretty quickly if he's going to stay on Showalter's good side. Showalter favors the veterans over the younger players. We know that already. But it's going to be made pretty clear and by Mets management that you're either going to be performing on this team or you're going to be gone. And things are going to have to be done soon, or else the Mets season is going to be lost. And as my brother said, this might be a connecting season to 2024 when the Mets might need to kind of revamp the whole roster because what they have right now is just not doing it. And that's very much the truth. What they have created is sort of a Frankenstein creature, the one that is not really capable of performing on a day-to-day basis, and they've shown they can do that. They cannot perform on a day-to-day basis. It is incredibly inconsistent, and the most we can really hope for at this moment is the Mets can try to eke out a win, at least one against this Rays team, and try and hope that can sort of foster at least some momentum going forward in the year. But I don't really have any confidence in that. They are just completely broken right now. It's ugly to watch. It makes it really tough as a Met fan to watch them. And something has to be done. In terms of what, I don't know. Mark Vientos seems like a good start, though. So we'll hope for Vientos. We'll hope for this Mets team to improve and kind of find their footing. Because if not, we're going to be looking at a really rough, long year as Met fans. Thank you for listening to Mike's Mets podcast. Please be sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Finally, please also follow the podcast Twitter, which is Mike's Mets Pod, all one word. Appreciate your time and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Let's go, Mets.